We treat a front door as a simple assembly of wood and metal. In practice, it marks the exact dividing line where the sanctuary of a home meets chaos of the outside world. This floor plan represents Euclidean space, where physical environments follow predictable mathematical rules. We expect a room to fit within its walls and distances to remain constant. Our security depends on these grids. We sleep trusting our hallways are fixed and walls won't shift. In 2008, a man moved into a residential block in Delhi. The apartment was quiet, the right size for his needs, and surprisingly affordable. The low rent provided enough of a distraction that the man ignored the landlord's strange behavior. There was no paperwork and almost no questions asked before the keys changed hands. Horror works best when it begins in a space that feels mathematically and socially normal. When the laws of a room eventually break, the lack of a familiar framework makes the result far more jarring. The landlord provided only one specific condition for the lease: don't use the back room. The layout followed a standard pattern: a living room, bedroom, and kitchen. This single locked door sat at the very end of the hall, separate from the rest of the living space. The man assumed the rule was tied to a physical defect. Old buildings often have structural damage or plumbing issues that landlords would rather hide than fix. He used real-world logic to explain away the warning. The apartment stayed quiet for the first few days. No sounds came from behind the door, reinforcing the idea that the landlord was just eccentric. He dismissed the warning as a weird rule for an old building. That dismissal provided the exact psychological opening required for the environment to change. At 3:12 a.m., the man woke up. There was no noise to wake him. He simply found himself alert in the dark. He noticed the hallway light was on, despite his routine of turning it off every night before bed. As he walked toward the hall, the air felt heavy and thick. Under the door of the back room, the light began to flicker. The usual household sounds remained silent. Instead, a rhythmic noise drifted from behind the door, breathing, slow, deep, and steady. He walked to the door and reached for the metallic handle. It was far colder than the air in the hallway. When he turned the handle and the lock clicked, he moved from being a resident in a house to a participant in the breakdown of its physical laws. The room inside was vastly larger than the building's exterior should allow. The walls of the apartment building essentially vanished, replaced by an impossibly deep, empty void. A figure stood in the distance. The man found he couldn't see it clearly, not because of the dark, but because the figure was unfocusable, as if it defied the mechanics of human vision. The entity communicated without sound. The words, "You opened it, now you stay," appeared directly in the man's mind. The lights cut out. When the man opened his eyes again, he was standing in the hallway. The door was closed. Everything looked normal. He went back to bed, telling himself it was just a dream. This moment of relief is a crucial part of the process. It uses the victim's own relief to make the next realization more effective. The next morning, the man prepared for work. He opened his front door, expecting to see the bustling life of the city. Instead of the street, the doorway led back into the same identical hallway. He was looking at his own front door from the wrong side. Just outside his window, there should have been a congested highway and the sounds of thousands of people. When he ran to the window and opened it, he found only a black void. The outside world had been replaced by a total absence of light. Opening that door shifted his relationship with the map. He didn't invite something into his world. He had moved himself completely outside the boundaries of the world he knew. The entity spoke again from behind the door. It explained that the room is not a location, but what stays when you open it. The man saw the stretching hallway multiply into a tunnel of slightly open, breathing doors. Here, the building's very geometry acts as the hunter. This story shifts the focus of a haunting. The threat isn't a specific ghost, but a set of architectural rules that have become predatory. The apartment functioned as a structure designed for those who find a closed door intolerable. In a world built on boundaries, moving past a final warning changes the rules of the environment. Once the man proved the door was optional, the hallway made sure he could never find another exit.